Hi, Sonya. I am so excited to have you here today. How are you doing?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No, I'm super excited. I came in here, everybody, fangirling already, to talk about The Body is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self Love. I love, love, love this book. I really
Yay.
want, if there's, I don't say this often, I'm a huge reader, I'm a huge bookworm, but this is like, I think, a must. I feel like this is one of the
Mhm.
books that every Black woman, every person who identifies as a Black woman needs to read. I just feel it's so
Thank
powerful. I
you.
would say everybody, but we'll
Yeah, I,
start
I'm
with
pro everybody with, I just very much everybody with the body, but we can
yes,
absolutely start with Black women. Fine.
yes,
We can start there.
yes. Let's today because it's Black Girl Burnout. I'm gonna say everybody
Yes.
listening needs to uh, get a copy of this, and I will also say, in full transparency, I own this book for a year and a half, and I sat it prettily on my shelf and was like, I love this book. I love
It's
this. Look at this
beautiful.
book.
Beautiful
Look at this
decor.
cover.
Beautiful
Look at this
decor.
cover. Everybody, look in this back corner up here. This is the book. This is the book. Everybody need to read this book. But Kelley had not cracked the
Not
book.
read the book yet.
And I want to be transparent about why, because I think it starts the conversation.
Yeah.
I didn't read this book because I wasn't ready.
Hmm.
Because this isn't a book you read like your favorite romance novel where you just crack it open, flip through the pages. And yet it was the most beautiful, like coming home to myself moment when I started reading this book.
I
So
love that.
I tell folks, everybody read it, but know that you're not. This isn't a thriller. This is about work,
Yeah.
right? It's necessary work, and so read it gently because I didn't read it all in one setting.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason why I'm gonna stop talking and fangirling and get into listening to you, but part of the reason why to set us up for this discussion of why you were at the top of the list of people I wanted to ask to be on this podcast is because you start off by talking about the ways that we have been shamed as a society for taking
Yeah.
up any space.
Yeah.
And you start about it's even in our genes, which for me as a therapist, my actual research area was intergenerational transmission of trauma, and I did it through
Wow.
slavery.
Yeah.
That I do believe the reason we have opted into struggle as Black women is a there's a traumatic line that can be tied to slavery and the ways that we're
Absolutely.
taught to be ashamed of who we are.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so I wanted to start off because you tell this powerful story in the beginning about this conversation you have with someone about where you came with this phrase, the body is not an apology. And so I wanted to hear from you just in general, where did this come from for you to speak about this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that illustration that I share at the beginning of the book really kind of solidifies that. I was in a conversation with a friend who's afraid she might have an unintended pregnancy. And when I began asking her questions about it, because I'm nosy, lovingly nosy, she shared with me that, she wasn't using protection with this particular partner because her disability, she had cerebral palsy. And she said her disability made her feel like she wasn't really entitled to ask for more accommodations. And I just, I said to her, your body's not an apology. It's not something you offer to say sorry for my disability. And when I said it, it was so clear that there was something landing in me. There was an immediate resonance with all the ways that I too had come to be ashamed of my own needs, to be ashamed of my own particular way of inhabiting this body, and that shame had made me compromise my values, it made me compromise my true desires, it had made me compromise my belief in myself. And there was a way in which that phrase, the body is not an apology, your body is not an apology, made me want to be like, maybe that's not true. Maybe I don't have to be ashamed of how it is that I exist in this body, how I exist in this life, the things that I need, what my desires are. What if there's a reconciliation that's asking to happen that is about actually not apologizing at all? Yeah. And so that really, once that conversation happened, a momentum began that I was sort of out of control of at that point. It was moving through me. And, the best thing I could do is figure out how to let that happen and get out of the way, get out of my own head and my ego around it, and let what wanted to arise. And it ended up being, a 12-year journey of really beautiful, whole reorientation with my relationship with my body, and an offering to share with the collective around that.
I think it's so beautiful the way, when you first hear that phrase, the body is not an apology, it's striking. It hits you really hard as you said it and you're moved to say it. But it's so much more than just the physical body, which, trust me, and more than anyone, we are very much attached to, and there's so much shame around that. But you talk about the shame of, your needs, your wants, your own feeling about yourself, that it was more than just your physical, I'm
Absolutely.
this tall, I weigh this much. Can you tell me a little bit about what is body shame? Like, what did you mean when you said that? How does that relate?
Yeah, well, I've always talked about the body as sort of like a trinity, right? That we are talking about our physical bodies, we are talking about our mental and emotional bodies, and we are also talking about our spiritual bodies. We're talking about, what does my soul need, and can I not be ashamed of that? What is my, what does my body need, and can I not be ashamed of that? What does my emotions and my wounding need, and can I not be ashamed of that? And so, there's all of these ways in which we receive messages that are not just about our physical bodies. We receive messages about, if you're too loud, if you're too, if you're too emotional, if you're too angry, like there are all kinds of ways of our beingness that we receive messages that those things are not okay. And so I really, when this idea came through me, it was always like, oh no, all of it. No, I mean, what if we stopped apologizing for all of it? from the rooter to the tutor, what would that look like? And so that was the beginning of that dismantling of body shame in its most vast interpretation. I always meant it beyond our corporal selves. Yeah.
And I think that's so important because, one, even though we are hyper-focused, and I think particularly when we talk about Black women's bodies, there's a historical legacy of hyper-focus on Black women's bodies, right? And exploitation of Black women's bodies. That is definitely easy to draw that line. Mm-hmm. And we spend, 90% of our time, when you first hear that phrase, you think, yeah, I'm not apologizing for how big or how small my boobs are. I'm not apologizing. I'm 5 feet tall. I'm done apologizing. Meanwhile, I'm on Instagram being like, yes, I'm short. I know I'm short. We spend 90% of our time thinking about the corporal body. Yeah. But it's the other pieces that it's so attached, right? Like I'm talking about apologizing for being short, but really what I am saying underneath the I'm apologizing, saying, oh yes, I'm short, everybody. I got to tell everybody real quick, I'm short, because everyone says, I expected you to be taller. Like you seem like a big personality. And there I am apologizing. Is underneath that is the belief that like, I'm sorry, I'm not enough.
Not enough. Exactly.
Or if I say, I got to change how I do this thing. I'm sorry, I'm too much. Mm-hmm. Right? I got to prepare you to receive not Kelley's physical body, prepare you to receive all of me. And so I'm starting to cut corners and squish and fit myself. And it's not really about my physical being. That when I say I'm short, it's like, I'm sorry I didn't take up enough space. And then contrasting, oh, I'm a lot. I tell people I'm a lot. I'm sorry, I'm too much. Exactly. And so drawing that line is so important and gets left behind.
All the time. And I think that's, if I had a wish around my work, it would be that people really could see into the expansiveness of it. Because you're absolutely right. There's this 90% of conversation is like the physical body. And what we're missing is that the only reason that we're even talking about the physical body is because we believe that it is a particular currency to a certain kind of access to acceptance, to love, to validation, to belonging, to connection, to these deeper human needs that we actually desire. And we've been told our body is how we get there. And so we're always like trying to figure out how to manage expectations or mitigate rejection or whatever through these bodies. But underneath that, what we're really saying is, am I lovable? Am I lovable? Am I me? this being, is this being lovable? In this world that has told me there are a million ways in which it's not. And so let me see how I can navigate and manage and figure out how to, in this language of opt in, how can I opt into lovability under this structure? And, the invitation that I think has always been inside of the work, the invitation inside of radical self-love is, what if that structure is a lie? Right? What if that structure is a lie? What if this thing you think you're opting into, this externalized lovability, was always an illusion, and that there's always only invitation to come back to the only true thing, which is our sense of love for ourselves, which from there everything else can flow from.
That so perfectly aligns with what came to me when I was talking about the language of opting out of struggle, right? That it's a lie. Like, what if there was something different? What if there was another way than just buying into this myth? And to that point, you give us these 3 kind of steps to opt out. You call it mapping your way out of shame. I'm just going to call it opt out of shame. And you talk about 3 ways of doing that. Make peace with not understanding, which is so powerful. Like, I had to sit with that for a minute because there's so many layers.
Yeah.
In the experience of Blackness, there's so much of what we do in struggle that is about getting understood.
Yeah.
It's about, and then while we're fighting to be understood, we then deny other people the understanding, right? Because then we're in fights, we're on Twitter beefs with people. The most silly version of this, right, is our Twitter beefing, right? Trolling somebody, being like, I'm going to tell you today. But really, it's like, I want you to see me and understand, and I'm just expending energy unhealthily. And vice versa, we're taking away understanding from folks, right? So this make peace with understanding. The second one was make peace with difference. So powerful. And making peace doesn't mean agreement. I always tell people this all the time. Like, I'm free to say, I don't like the color purple. That's one of my favorites. But that's fine. And you can make peace with that. Okay, purple's your favorite color.
Right.
Making peace with difference. And then the last step, which is so key, going back to this whole thing about the 90-20, the 90-10, excuse me, that the last step is making peace with our bodies. Like, it doesn't start there. We don't start with like, girl, you look good in this dress, right? Like, this is it. It ends there, which is so important. Can you walk us through those 3 steps a little bit and give us some tips?
Yeah. So, this idea of making peace with not understanding, so much of our conflict, right, is about trying to make the world make sense to us. Right. And we exhaust a tremendous amount of energy trying to make the world make sense to us. And the truth of the matter is, it's not. It can't. It's beyond. It's above your pay grade. And the sooner you make peace with the fact that there's stuff that's above your pay grade, you can remove an entire chunk of exhaustion off of your life. Right. It's like, I don't understand that. And why do I what is the impetus that tells me that I need to understand it, right? And what is the story that I have attached to understanding it that is rooted in, well, I'm either not worthy if I don't understand it, I'm not lovable if I don't understand it, I'm not enough if I don't understand it, right? We start to see how these things are tied to each other, how my need to understand a thing is tied to my sense of validity, of enoughness, right? And again, what the invitation is can I disentangle those things? That I don't need to ever understand anything, and it does not change my lovability, my validity, my worthiness, my enoughness as a human being on this planet, period. And so can I let myself be like, okay, I just don't know. I just don't know. Okay. Yeah. I tell you, there's so much freedom in it. I was, and I grew up a notorious know-it-all. Like, I was a know-it-all.
Me too.
Right? I think you'll find some of us in some different professions telling people things, right? And one of the things that, and I began to see how my like know-it-allness was really just like, how else will the world know I'm worthy if I don't have all the answers, right? And once I began to disengage that story, it was like, it's not needed, right? Like, one, the world doesn't need to know that I am worthy. I need to know that I am worthy. And from there, then everything else comes from that place. And so that piece of getting rid of needing to understand, really creates a spaciousness, right? A spaciousness in our lives. And then this, the aspect of making peace with difference is, and it goes with, we have these like categorization systems that humans do. It's like, right, I need to understand it or it's wrong, right? If I can't understand it, then it needs to go in another category, and that category is wrong, right? Because again, wrong allows me to protect my sense of self, my sense of worthiness and enoughness, because it's not because I don't know, which is me. It's because it's bad, right? And so then everything we don't understand that's different than us becomes wrong, as opposed to just different. Just the human, not even the human, the just universal law of variation, right? Yeah. Like there's a reason there are more than just oak trees, right? There's a reason there are more than just schnauzers. There's a reason, right? Because variation is how life lives. It wants difference. It needs difference. Difference creates contrast and vibrancy and beauty. And so when I find myself in the trap of sameness, in the idea that like something has to be the same in order for it to be acceptable, where is that coming from? What is that actually about? Oh, and it's about, again, well, if it's different, then how will I know I belong? If it's different, then how will I know I have connection? How will I know I'm safe? We keep going back to these core central concerns of humanness, right? That are in some ways evolutionary, right? We were like, oh, same, my tribe won't eat me.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Not a bad delineation system for safety in those contexts. But we're not in that context. And so evolution has devised all kinds of other ways for us to be that make sense with where we are now. This is an invitation to evolve beyond difference as some arbiter of our safety, of our belonging, of our, connection. And the more difference, that we allow ourselves to experience, the more expansive our worlds become. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity. I was a military kid, and so we lived all over the place. Yay!
Military kids unite.
Right. Exactly. And there was a way in which it really broadened my experience, my horizon, my perspective about life. It made me an insatiable journeyer. It made me want to know all kinds of people and cultures and ideas. And, I remember the first time I had lumpia, the Filipino lumpia, and I was like, yay, right? There's a gift in difference if we can learn to make peace with it. If we divorce it from the story that somehow difference means disconnection, because difference doesn't have to mean disconnection. Difference can actually mean expansion if we let it. And then the last one, which is make peace with our bodies. And again, it's the idea that we have been socialized and conditioned to believe that these bodies are our currency in the world. They are currency for belonging. They are currency for lovability. They are currency for social status. And so, we need to be manipulating it. We need to be at war with it. We need to get it under our control. We need to dominate it and have it be the way we need it to be. And, one of the things that I offer often is like, if you are in that relationship, if you're a relationship of control, coercion, and domination with your body, like I've never seen peace, equity, justice, or love come out of those particular dynamics. And so if what you say, so first you got to get clear about what you want. Do you want domination and coercion, or do you want peace and love, equity, and compassion? Because if you want peace and love and equity and compassion, then you're going to have to start practicing someplace. And that place is with you. That place is with this relationship, with this, my ex used to call it fleshy thought tube, this fleshy thought tube that you have to traverse this experience called life. There's when we have peace inside of this, then we actually start to see that the story of currency is a lie, that the story that somehow I have to barter and buy my way into validity, into connection, into resource, that's actually a lie. And the only reason it's still working is because we're all still invested in believing it. You know,
and we've still opted in.
We still opted in. As soon as you opt out, it's like them spams in your email box. As soon as you opt out, you're just not even in. You don't care what Target has on sale this week. It doesn't matter, right? And your energy goes back to what it is you actually care about.
So true. So true. And if there's one thing I want to anchor before we, close out today's episode, is that you said, if you want to have peace, equity, and compassion, it has to start with you.
Has to.
If nothing else you get from this segment, and there's way more to get, it has to start with you. And that isn't you in the most expansive sense. And that is how you opt out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you can't, and you can't opt into the new world, right? Into that world of justice and peace and equity.
Yeah.
It's not an inside out. It's not an outside in job. It's an inside out job.
Yes. 100%. More to come with Sonya Renee Taylor. Y'all know why I was excited to have her on. So we will be back. We're going to dig into now what we're going to opt into, because we're leaving behind shame. We're opting out of shame, and we're going to move into radical self-love. So more to come on that.